We'll start with the 210,000 Bitcoin that President Trump just mentioned and pull it into a reserve stored in geographically diverse vaults. And that's only the beginning. Over 5 years, the United States will assemble 1 million Bitcoin, 5% of the world's supply.
Imagine the US quietly hoovering up 1 million Bitcoin. That's nearly 1 in every 21 coins that will ever exist. If the US starts buying, does the price moon? Or does the market panic? Stay with me. Here's what is actually being debated today and why it matters here in the UK. So what's this Bitcoin Reserve idea? A group in the US is discussing a proposal for a strategic reserve of up to 1 million Bitcoin. Why would they do it? To diversify reserves beyond dollar and gold, hedge against inflation and debt risks, and signal US leadership in digital assets and open source monetary tech. Here's Jack Mollers to explain some of what's going on.
I expect China to buy gold and Bitcoin before they buy the 10-year. The deal was, we'll run a trade deficit as the United States of America. We will be the world reserve currency. You guys have to buy our treasuries, lend us money in return. Well, all of a sudden, these long duration instruments, they weren't preserving purchasing power because real rates negative. Meaning, yes, you're getting some yield by owning the 10-year, but inflation of the dollar losing purchasing power isn't compensating you. Your purchasing power is being lost. And China is like, screw it. I'm just going to buy Facebook. I'm just going to buy Amazon. I'm just going to buy Google. I'm just going to buy Nvidia. I'm just going to buy Apple. I'm just going to buy scarce real estate in the US. And it's like, well, that sucks because now we're allowing you to have this giant trade surplus and you just own all the like dope shit in America and we get screwed and there's a giant wealth gap in our country. There's no middle class. We can't produce anything. And so the deal is if you want to buy treasuries with no tax, you can go for it. But Besant is admitting their real rate's negative. So if you're China and you're saying, okay, the US doesn't want me buying their stocks, doesn't want me buying their real estate, doesn't want me buying their farmland, I can't buy any US assets without paying an enormous tax. And if I buy the 10-year, the Treasury Secretary is literally telling me real rates are going to be negative. So what should I buy? And then the US is out saying, by the way, we're auditing Fort Knox and we have a strategic Bitcoin reserve. I actually think the fact that the United States established a strategic Bitcoin reserve is unbelievable given the way they're re-architecting global capital flows. They're not literally saying this, but they're effectively saying, you got to buy gold, you got to buy Bitcoin.
How big is 1 million Bitcoin really? Absolutely massive. Post-halving, about 450 BTC are mined per day. 1 million coins is over 6 years worth of new supply. If a buyer with deep pockets starts competing for coins, you can get a supply squeeze even they try to buy quietly. What would it cost? At current market levels, you're talking low hundreds of billions of dollars if they ever tried to buy the full amount. Tens of hundreds of billions in pounds. Realistically, any plan would phase purchases and might cap out well below the headline 1 million figure. Why should the UK care? Because price is global and the US sets the tone. If America starts stacking sats, we feel it here. Pound versus Bitcoin pricing, UK exchanges, and even traditional markets that now treat Bitcoin as a macro asset. Also, it raises the question for should HM Treasury or Bank of England consider digital reserves one day, or at least a clear framework so UK institutions don't fall behind. I personally think Nigel Farage should get a chance. Also, this Thursday, September 18th, this is where the Fed decides if we're going to cut interest rates. If this happens, the US is going to print more money than they know what to do with, meaning high inflation, but for investors means fasten your seatbelts, Bitcoin is going to the moon alongside gold. So what does this mean for UK investors? If you're in the UK using exchanges, you're likely to see higher volatility and headlines. Make sure you understand fees and spreads. Use self-custody, not your keys, not your coins. Keep records of tax and size positions so brutal swings doesn't wreck your month. If you've made it this far, do me a quick favour, subscribe to the channel, it really helps me out, and turn on notifications so you get all of my updates. Also drop a comment, what do you reckon? Do you think we're going to get rate cuts this September? And do you think we're going to hit 200,000 per coin this year minimum? What do you think? I really do think we're going to hit 1 million per coin before 2030. Here's Jack Mollers again, basically explaining why we need Bitcoin and why the US are going to be running to get 1 million Bitcoin as fast as possible. This will be 5% of the total ever supply.
They're saying the quiet part out loud. And the quiet part to me is a monetary regime change.
The end of the Bretton Woods era in the 1970s fundamentally changed the conduct of monetary policy.
Okay, that was a lot of boring. Let me break it down. The Bretton Woods era, the divorce of the gold standard, is the death of the US dollar. You cannot divorce yourself from the physical realities of Mother Nature. To be candid, I'd never really seen a chairman say something so painfully true and so brutally honest like that, and that when we divorced from the gold standard, shit got fucked. Sorry, kid show. Excuse my language. Let's just make it simple. You owe someone $37 trillion. How do you make that affordable so you can pay that back? Well, you make the dollar, the thing that you owe, worth less. In real life, when someone is in debt, they have two options, typically. One, you could pay it back like an honest man. Two, you can default. If I owe you $20, I either can pay the $20 back and erase my debt, or I can call you up and say, listen, I get it if you don't want to be friends with me, but I default on the $20. I just can't pay you back. Those are the two options. In all of our lives, in any normal human's life, the US government has a third option, unique to them. They can print what they owe.
As a central bank, we have the ability to create money.
Guys, just run the math. They cannot pay the debt back. They cannot default. So it's a multiple choice question with one obvious answer. But for the life of us Bitcoiners, no one was ever willing to admit the truth. We were being gaslit and lied to and manipulated by media, by government, by financial authorities, by TV analysts for years. Now to hear it from Jerome Powell in Reuters, and this isn't even like beating around the bush. I'm going to read this title one more time just because it feels good rolling off the tongue. Historic, not, a mild version. Historic dollar fall is needed to eliminate the U.S. trade deficit. They need a weaker dollar. Which, weaker against what? I have an answer to that. This is debasing the dollar against an asset. I expect the dollar to be weaker in Bitcoin and gold terms, because it's all about weak against what? How are they going to devalue their way out of this? Against what? What's the one thing Trump did not tariff? What's the one thing he set up a strategic reserve for? There's an obvious best expression of currency debasement. Look at that.
A rate cut can help Bitcoin by loosening conditions and turning that into a plan to buy Bitcoin to get out of their debt. What do you think? Should the government hold a little bit of Bitcoin or keep it off the balance sheet entirely? Drop your views below. I want to thank you all for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe with notifications for more future uploads. Thank you very much and peace!